Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show. Today, I've got a interview with Jamie Harris. He is the founder, creator, brains behind ALPHABOARDZ. They are a planer board that is relatively new to the fishing scene. They made a big splash, no pun intended, in the catfish world, but they're also used for stripers, walleye, and a lot of other species of fish. I sat down with him at the 2025 Catfish Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, and here's what he had to say. So, Jimmy, tell me about you. You're relatively new to this catfish industry place as far as being a face. Relatively. Give us your background. Where are you from? What do you do? What did you do? Why the heck did you jump into this world?
Wow. So I'm from Roxboro, North Carolina, a little small town near the Virginia border, central North Carolina, and I am a jack of all trades. My fishing experience in the early years was limited to a surf fisherman. I fell in love with the industry through a mutual friend in the industry, and the community drew me into this style of fishing. But the best part about that was being able to learn about all the different techniques of fishing that I didn't know was out there. And one was pulling planer boards.
Normally, that would be somebody that came from a mechanical background, a design background, a fabricator, somebody from the fishing industry.
Right. Okay.
It sounds like you're.
So my jack of all trades, that part is I've built houses. I've been a professional photographer. I've worked as a project engineer for a manufacturing company. I've worked as a general manager of an industrial contracting company. So I have an engineering background. Now, I'm not an engineer per se, but I've been around a lot of engineering. I've been around a lot of engineers, had to do a lot of engineering on my own within projects.
Engineering processes, too.
Processes, yes. So the jack of all trades really came in to help me when my brother, who was the total opposite of all this, who owns a furniture business and has a building in Roxboro, says, Jamie, what can we do in manufacturing? I've got this building here in Roxboro, and this was during COVID. And I said, well, the outdoor business is booming. There's a lot of people out there. I'm watching them making weights, and they're making jigs, and they're making lures and things like that. Went to a friend of mine and began searching for what's missing out there in the industry that that's lacking, what's not getting attention. You know, I don't need to be making more weights or more lures, or because there's millions of lures out there, and I found that there was an issue in the planer board business. And the biggest issue was storability, because they all have this fixed arm that's in the way and easily gets broken, especially the tube style arms that, you know, once you accidentally step on or trying to yank them out of a hole and you bend them back, and that's usually it. Sometimes you can bend them one more time, but the aluminum breaks. So,
and this is where I'll insert a shot of the back compartment on my boat with like planer boards piled on top of a drift sock and a bunch of other stuff.
Right, exactly. They get tangled up, and just amongst themselves, they're tangled up. So, somebody told me, he says, you know what? If you can make a planer board that the arm folds out of the way, you might have something. So I had a Zach Royce board, and I sat down in there and I said, that's a good idea. And I started just going through the process. And in several hours, I had the first concept and put it on paper. And it had to be tool-free. It had to be no cotter pins. It had to be nothing that would when you're out there fishing in days like today, February, or in the wintertime when the fish are kind of laying low. And I said it's got to be easy. And the first planer board I made, Zach Royce pulled it for me, and it worked up until 1.5 miles an hour, and then it didn't work. So of course the process began, and took about a year to get to where we are now. Another year of pulling and testing. We had the idea started 2.5 years before we ever launched the first board.
Yeah. And let me interrupt you right there. For
Okay.
people that don't understand planer boards,
Yep.
and I know it's kind of new for some people, basically planer board is a board that you put into the water and it swims out away from the boat. 2 basic reasons to do it. 1, cover more water. 2, you can eliminate tangles, sorta, until you get a big fish.
Yep.
But speed affects how that board planes and depends on how much weight you put behind it on a drift rig, like people have seen me doing videos. All of that affects how well the board performs in the water.
Right.
And that's what you were discovering as you found out what the top end speed was on it.
Right. And we knew that there's not going to be one perfect planer board that covers all species. But we wanted to take that good size planer board and say, okay, how slow can we get it to pull and pull good? How fast can we pull this board? So dialing in the length of that arm, the position of that arm on the board is the key to what makes a board pull good. This board will pull just a little bit harder than other boards, but that means I can pull it wide at 0.3 miles an hour, and I can pull that board excess of 4 miles an hour and it not come out of the water, lay on top of the water like some boards. So
because that's what, for people who don't know, you start going too fast with it, it'll start, I call it porpoising. It'll come up out of the water, flop on its side, come up out of the water, plop on its side.
Or just lay on top of the water,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And so we were able to accomplish that with this board. And in that way, nobody around here pulls them at 4 miles an hour. There are some people on the West Coast that do pull them that fast. But if we're in that range of 0.5 to 2.5 miles an hour, we got a big selection of species covered. And we were able to do that with this board.
Yeah. What's interesting is you mentioned Zach Royce board.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere on the internet, there's some old videos of me experimenting with catfish probably 15 years ago using planer boards. At the time, there was the Yellowbirds, the big bulky thing, and the water bugs that were mainly used for striper fishing, pulling live striper baits, which is a totally different animal. I was trying to use them with drift rigs. They didn't have a big enough piece. And I'll stop right there. Well, let me say this. There wasn't a good board until that one came out. Ironically, coincidentally, I should say, the guy who was making those things was literally a half mile from my house, and I never knew it.
Right.
And I used those things early on because they were bigger. Has the planer board world, come up with the name for the metal piece that goes into the water? I've called it a rudder. I've called it a blade. Has anybody come up with a proper name for that yet?
A fin,
No, they haven't.
a blade.
Okay.
I actually put that out there in a post.
Yeah.
I said, what do y'all call this thing?
I just call it a rudder because it kind of acts like a rudder on an airplane or on a boat, and or a blade, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, with yours too, one of the issues that I've come across with planer boards for at least fishing for catfish and dragging santee rigs like I do, because I drag a rig. A lot of people don't get that. I've tried to show it in videos. I cast it out. That santee rig goes to the bottom. So you got a 2.5 ounce weight, the weight of the rig. You've got immediately that much. That is dragging on the bottom. You need a bigger board to do that. And your board's big enough to do that. The other thing is, and I haven't fished with them yet, but I've looked at the design of them and held them, and they seem to be durable, because a lot of these things, people, like a lot of things in the catfish world you alluded to earlier, get homemade. Nothing wrong with that. Not everybody has made to buy something.
That's how it started.
But you try using Lexan or plexiglass or something like that, good cold morning, wrong place in the boat, you step on the corner of it, you snap it off and it's broke. So and then it swims totally different. Your stuff seems to be pretty durable, especially with the flotation on it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like you put some work into figuring that out.
We started looking at all the different possibilities for foam, early on, because we did want something durable, because, the EVA foam, which is a great foam, it's got great flotation, it does, you can pick it off and plugs come out of it and things like that. And while it's really a very good option, better than pool noodle, it's a very good option. And I'm not opposed to maybe having a board with that on it. But right now I said I wanted something that really, really is durable. Let's just come right out the gate with something that's made really, really well. And took me back to the days of duck decoys. The old style duck, now they're plastic. But the old style duck decoys were a 2-part polyurethane expanded foam. It's poured into a mold and expands, and boom, pop out, you've got a duck. And so we went that route and dialed in the 10-pound density. We're between that 9 and 10-pound density board, which it's very durable, very tough. One day I really wanted to take one off, and I had to take a hatchet and a hammer in several minutes to beat it off the board. I had no idea it was going to be that durable. And there's a video where I took one and used it as a wheel chalk, stuck it up under my Durango and backed over it, and it didn't explode. I said, this is going to be a really good video or it's going to be an awful video. And sure enough, it ran over it, it bent the board, and I straightened the board out, and it worked. So it's durable. And, it's got its things. It's because it's a rigid foam, it might not hold its color as well, but, a rolling stone gathers no moss. So we're constantly looking at ways to improve a board that we just launched a year and 3 months ago.
Yeah. Wow, that's a short amount of time. And yeah, I mean there's a whole you've taken one step on the path. There's a whole lot of stuff out there down that path. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing people need to know about planer boards is you have it's basically the same board configured slightly differently on the right and the left. Mm-hmm. In the old days, the boards were a right side board or a left side board. Most of them have evolved to interchangeable, mm-hmm. but a lot of them you have to unscrew something, put something on the other side, swap this around. How do your boards work in that aspect as far as right and left side?
Right. During that process of trying to figure out an arm that closed, the fold out of the way for storage, all the different ideas I went through from some type of knuckle or hinge or something like that, tech kept leading me back to folding into the center of the board instead of beside the board. And once I got into the center of the board, I said, well, let's just go all the way through to the other side. Now we've got a true universal board. So this arm on our board not only folds in, but it folds through the board, pops back on the other side by just taking the release clip off, reattaching the clip, and boom. Now if you're got 2 sets of boards, some people fish 6 or 7 boards on the side out there in the Chesapeake and some of the big lakes. But let's say you've got 4 boards, you got 2 on one side and 2 on the other, and you want to go striper fishing, you want to pull them all in the flats, and you don't want to drive through the middle of it. Now you can take all boards and make them right side or left side by just flipping the arm to one side and keeping your boat out of the flats and spooking the fish and pull them all up against the bank.
Cool. Now, one of the things on mine, people have seen my evolution with the clips. I'm very fond of, I call it the ratchet clip. It doesn't really ratchet, but it's the levered locking.
lever locking.
I like
clip.
it locking because my stuff, and just so people know, originally a lot of the planer boards were designed, you get a hit, you pop it really hard. You basically had a clothespin pinched down on the line. Mm-hmm. You'd pull it pretty hard, and it would pop it free. And you could fight the fish, and it's on the line. Nothing wrong with that. When you're dragging weights on the bottom, you're going to get snagged up eventually. Mm-hmm. And as I jokingly say on the boat, when it's that ratchet clip, it's got basically a lever that locks it onto the line. About 65.2% of the time, if you get snagged, you don't have to go fetch the board. It'll stay attached to the line. Sometimes it pulls tight enough and it fires off there.
Right.
How do your clips work? Are they interchangeable if I want that? What's the whole clip structure on this?
So Our first set of boards, our first 2 production runs came with just an aftermarket red and kind of like the offshore brand clip, and then the one that mimics the Scotty release clip. Both of them were trash. They were terrible, absolutely terrible. I spent more time on the clip than I did on the board, going back and forth with manufacturing. So this year we introduced our own clip, which is an offshore style clip. They make great clips, but we decided to make one with a stronger spring, the larger head. So we've got a little bit more surface area, a little more real estate for the line to sit in. We've got that pin, so if you are dragging through structure and you do not want the board to release, you can put your line behind that pin. But you've got a lot more power in the clips that we're making now, so it's less chance that board will slip down the line or come off. And so we spend a lot of time on developing a clip that really works.
If I wanted to put my little locking down clip on there, could I do that?
Oh, by all means.
Okay.
Yeah. And now we've got to think about the Great Lakes, because we got so many people calling about our boards on the Great Lakes.
Fishing.
Walleye fishing. Yes, that's one of the biggest ones. And they use 2 clips. They like a clip on the back as well. So it's like, okay.
Oh, so on the back where mine normally the line just runs through
it. Just runs through it, yep. They want a clip back there as well. So they want to be able to pop the front one, reel it but not the board slide down the line. So, but yeah, so they've got their style of fishing.
Yeah, it's what,
and it's a big market.
Yeah,
it's worth taking a good look at. Making sure we have something that'll fit their needs as well, and we're working on that now too.
So, give us just a little insight. The old saying, we all rise to the level of our incompetence, and the incompetence with most great ideas is actually turning it into something in your hand.
Yeah.
What is that like, having an idea like this? I mean, it's a great idea. We all come up with great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But one, creating some type of model of it, a working model, and then turning it into something that can be manufactured in bulk. Mm-hmm. It's like the old Zach Royce boards. There was a guy sitting in the shop making those things, had somebody stamp out the aluminum,
right,
cut the thing, glue it on, put some screws in this that's tapped out.
Yep.
It was hand assembled.
Right.
And I'm sure yours are hand assembled to a point, but you've got to make all the components for it. You've got to do this in a quick. Take us through kind of what it takes to get something from an idea in the fishing world to sitting out here at the Catfish
Stamina, the willpower not to give up. Because
was there a little stupidity and ignorance involved in that you kind of got into something you didn't know and you just kept going? Or did you know what to expect here?
No, I didn't know what to expect. And no, it was scary because I had to ask a lot of questions. And I had to do my research. And I spent sleepless nights watching your videos and a bunch of other people's videos pulling planer boards. And I said, okay. And just learning the industry around planer boards. And but yeah, so the design part is my favorite part. It's all on paper. I used to have AutoCAD. I don't have AutoCAD anymore. That was back in another day. So it's all with calipers and scales and graph paper is where it all started. And I think having that ability to do that, of course, helps. Some people can convey their idea to another person and have them design it. Luckily, I was able to do the design work and then good enough to send it to a person to put it on a computer and 3D modeling and such. And but sticking with it and having a good support group, people that you can say, hey, you think this will work? No, that won't work. Hey, yeah, you're on something right there, and sticking with it. That right there is the biggest key is don't give up. And I didn't give up. And there were 2 or 3 times that I said, I'm done with it. This ain't going to work. Especially when it came to finding a manufacturer. That was one of the most difficult parts, because I didn't want to have to cut blades, cut blanks of aluminum, ship it to another person. They do the foam, ship it to another person. They do the boxing. I said, somebody take this thing and make it.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people don't think about when it comes to whether it be, you know, a catfish rod, a sinker, whatever. You can do it small and make you some extra side money doing it yourself. But to get it to a level for mass distribution, putting it in the store, the package, all that, you've got to figure out a process.
Yeah.
A manufacturing process to do all that stuff. And man, that's where I become the incompetent one.
Yeah. Well, it you know, a lot of prayer and a lot of being in the right place at the right time. And one was a photography job that I did for a person who hand makes ornaments in Virginia. And we were at that point that last year before we ever started manufacturing. It's like, I got a prototype and a product that's working. I just can't find a manufacturer. And he set me on this path of someone in Charlotte that could possibly help me out with that. And sure enough, be in the right place, the right time, or talking to the right person, because you got to talk. You got to talk to the right people. You can't get your secret out, but you've got to talk to and do research, and it finally paid off.
Give me your take on the catfish industry and the business. Now, you're still new to it. You come in with, as I say, you know, you're still in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Everybody's wonderful, and it's just a big break. What's your take on the industry? It sounds like you've been exposed to some different industries along the way, whether it be building or whatever. What's your take on the whole business? Catfish Conference has been kind of a, you know, that's kind of a good little bringing everybody together. What's your take and the potential and the growth and all that? What do you see?
I love it. I love I think it's one of the largest or the fastest growing fishing species industry. It's not as big as bass, and it probably never will be, but I think in the growth right now, it's one of the fastest growing. And the people that I've met are just phenomenal. It really is a community. There's always some people out there that are going to be the naysayers. They're going to be the negative Nancys.
That's my job. That's my job. I'll take all of that.
No, you know.
Now,
you've got your ways.
That's in any industry.
Yeah, but you just avoid it.
Yeah.
Just don't get caught up with it.
Stay in your lane.
And you know, we have our affiliate program, and when I bring my affiliates in here, you know, I have to instruct them. Well, I don't have to instruct them. I try to pick ones that I've already done my homework on, but then I'll always say, if somebody says something bad about the board, don't get into it. You know, there's people going to like our boards. There's people who's not going to like our boards. That's fine. There's enough room for all of us out there, and we're just going to do our part in marketing the way we can, and don't get involved in the drama, and don't ever mention anybody else's board when you're comparing our boards out there on social media. You know, if our boards pulls better than X, Y, and Z, say you just like the way ours pulls, or you like the way this feature works, but don't ever compare it to another board, because I don't want to lose any friends, and I've got friends that pull other boards.
Yeah.
And I'm good friends with them.
Yeah.
And they just like that board for that reason, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Where did the name come from? I mean, the board part's easy. Why Alpha?
Alpha.
There's lots of meanings to Alpha. You can go different directions.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it says. You know, it's the big dog. But we went through a bunch of different names, and we settled on Alpha, and it was going to be Alpha Boardz with an S, but that name was taken with a board of directors. There's ALPHABOARDZ.com with an S.
Okay.
So it's Alpha Boardz, and now we got you covered from A to Z.
Okay. I wonder who else uses that. There's another company that uses that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What is that truck that comes every day and brings packages to my wife? Anyway, that place in that river in the jungle. Yeah, that one. So, what's next? We'll close with that. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff you can do in the board the planer board industry, or the planer board sector. Is there anything else in fishing you've seen you got without going specific, because we never want to give up ideas?
Right. One thing that we did this year that we didn't talk about was introduced a light.
Oh yeah, that's right. You got to
Right.
tell me about that real quick.
And the reason I was say that is because that was, and this is going to tie all together. That was an idea from the very beginning, whether it be a glow stick or a light with batteries. And I didn't like that LED part with the batteries because it's another thing that's small that you can drop and lose and whatever, and so it was an idea from the beginning, but we're at that point to where, like, we just need to get on with manufacturing. Now you ask me what's next. We're going to let the market dictate that. We've got a lot of ideas. We've got a lot of bigger boards, smaller boards, boards for specific species, but we're going to focus on marketing this year. I'm going to take a break from engineering and design work because I've done that for the past 5 years and I'm getting a little burnt out. Not really burnt out, but we're going to focus on ALPHABOARDZ and what they are right now this year, and we're going to listen. We're going to sit back and listen. The new market up north with the Great Lakes may tell us that this is what we need. This board isn't quite doing what we need. And we're going to listen to them.
Is there just one size in them right now?
Just one size.
Okay.
Yeah. Two colors.
And what range do you think that's built for as far as speed goes and pulling weight? What kind of range of either fish, boat speeds?
It's good. It's good for anywhere from half a mile, 0.3 actually, but half a mile. I'd say half a mile an hour to 3.5, 4 miles an hour. It'll do what you need to do. Weight range, suspending. Now a fish, people says, oh, I've got a 6-pound fish here. Can I fish with that? Well, put it in the water. How much does it weigh? It weighs nothing. It's neutral buoyancy. So it'll pull about any size bait you want to pull in this industry. Now as far as dead weight, lead weight, it's good to about 8 ounces. 10 ounces is putting a lot of too much for it.
Yeah.
So if you
8 ounces dragging baits, I think that's a lot.
People aren't dragging baits, but the people who are pulling them, like in the Mississippi River and really heavy current, and they want that bait to be right below, they're using 20 ounces of weight. It's like, no, this board won't handle that. So if enough of you out there thinks that I need a board that'll handle 20 plus ounces of weight, let me know and we'll build you one.
Yeah.
But right now,
find the market for that one and you'll feel it.
Yeah.
Well, in closing, where do people find them? Obviously, they have some very nice packaging. It's the only planer board I've seen that is packaged very nicely. So apparently you've got them in some stores or maybe some of the...
Yeah, and that was the whole idea, because if we're gonna produce them like we're producing them, we want to go to retail. There's nothing wrong with selling them out of your garage or taking them to some small shops in your area. That's great. But we wanted to go to retail with it. So we had to concentrate on the packaging as well. And to find us, we sell them direct online. It's ALPHABOARDZ.com. ALPHABOARDZ with a Z. With a Z. And we are in 27 different tackle shops that we know of. We're also with a distributor who may take them to other tackle shops that we don't know where they go, but and those can be found online as well. So you can go to ALPHABOARDZ.com. You can go all the way to the bottom. It says find a retailer and pull up a map of the U.S. and we're in 27 tackle shops right now and growing.
Awesome. Dude, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good stuff.
Wonderful.
Well, there you go, folks. An interesting backstory on how he got into the business, and I think you're going to be seeing more out of this company and their planer boards as we go on down the road. I've tried them out. I've actually got a review video that I put up talking about them, giving some insight to them, and it's one that you consider when you're picking your next planer board to go fishing with. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll catch you out on the water.